Like that theme, it's time for Nerdy for 30, podcast where we talk about nerdy-ish movies for 30-ish minutes. Hell of a concept. My name is Kevin Bauer, a.k.a. the Critic's Choice. With me, as always, my faithful co-host, the People's Champ, Tim Keck.
If you feel it, chase it, baby.
If you feel it, chase it. Today, we're chasing Thunderbolts, asterisk. Marvel's latest release. You know, I think we're back, Tim. I gotta admit, we came into this year rocky. If you've been listening to this pod, you know that I've been slowly losing faith over time. Daredevil Born Again, powerhouse. This movie, powerhouse. Really enjoyed this. Such a good time. Perfect way to kick off the summer movie season. Am I crazy or are they back, Tim?
No, I think we're back. Now, the question is just, are we back, or is this like a back blip? But I feel like I've been seeing some goss online that during Daredevil, Feige like circled the wagons and kind of tried to get everybody on the same page about things going forward and going back to some more traditional, at least for Daredevil, having like more traditional showrunners, maybe a more traditional writer's room, like really making a solid attempt to recover from this stuff. And kind of the theory I saw online is the Captain America New World or whatever it was called. Red Hulk, Captain America Red Hulk was like the last movie that got out before they decided to revamp all this stuff. So who knows? Maybe we're looking at a new, brighter, better, more powerful Marvel universe going forward. I hope that's the trend. I hope it's a trend. But this movie is, I think, not only a return to form in quality, but it felt new. It felt different. It felt original. They were tackling these like emotional, depression and all these like psychological, like kind of problems and issues and trauma. And it wasn't so much about the fighting, which we did get, but it was about all these deeper relationships between these characters within themselves, all that kind of good stuff. And it felt like fresh and new to me. Kevin, what did you think about it? Is it return to form or just a blip?
Return to form, dude. I think it's telling. I think it's a really good sign that the two big things that we're talking about here are Born Again and Thunderbolts, where both of these went through significant changes during the process of getting made. For Daredevil, they had to have the balls to scrap most of that show. I think at the point in time where that got retooled, I think they had like 80% of it done or something insane and unprecedented. And the choice to go back through and rework the story for that and reshoot everything they'd already shot with a new creative team and new writers attached, that was a massive financial decision. But I think that's a good sign that they were looking at what they had and saying, this is not good enough. Same thing with Thunderbolts. Apparently, when this movie started off, it started off as like basically a bottle episode of a TV show where they were in the vault for most of the movie. There's all this stuff online. If you're on Reddit, I'm sure you've seen all this stuff about how originally Taskmaster had this huge character arc in the movie, had this like budding friendship storyline with Ghost. And then the fact that they were willing to cut all that and replace it with just Ghost putting a bullet in Taskmaster's fucking forehead in the beginning. Like the extent that they were able to rework these things, but not lose it in the sauce of, more and more chefs coming into the kitchen, but in fact, being able to dial it in with people coming in and saying, hey, I've got a fresh take on this. This is what it needs to be, is incredible. Both of them worked out so well, really paid off. This one specifically, everything that I've read about what it could have been versus what it is now, and the way that they ended this, like you mentioned, with not just your average Marvel slugfest with fists, but like actually having to confront some inner demons and stuff. Man, it's great. It's got me verklempt, Tim.
It's so cool. It's so good. Taskmaster. That's why they had to get rid of her, because it's too tricky a name to say. It doesn't flow off the tongue. Taskmaster.
They could have. What's even more confusing is that, you easily could have just, if you wanted to, given this character the subtitle of The Masked Tasker, because that is something the Taskmaster does. So Taskmaster, the Masked Tasker, you got to get them out of there.
I Yeah, I feel like it kind of sucks for that character to go through, especially to shoot all this movie stuff and then to get cut out completely. And they just do it so unceremoniously that I thought for sure at any moment she was going to sit up and be a part of the rest of the movie. The Thunderbolts team, I think, is kind of interesting. It feels it's a very odd team, but it doesn't feel like as random and widespread as I would have thought potentially. You know, it's a bunch of characters from Black Widow. There's one character from an Ant-Man movie, and then Captain America, and then characters around Captain America and the Falcon, right? Yeah. So Taskmaster is able to recreate all of the abilities of the Avengers, but we're also already recreating a lot of the abilities of the Avengers. So it was cool to see the archery thing and to see them use a sword. That was neat. But then Ghost picks up the sword and it's like, cool, now we have a Ghost with a sword. That's even better. Yeah. Now we've got all these extra things. It seemed like that was an incredibly easy character to replace.
Yeah, I think so. It's also crucially not a very fun character. And I guess basically the like way that they were going to handle that throughout the movie is that she just wouldn't really be able to take a joke and was like a very literal person. It sounds like kind of like a more Batista. Dour Drax. And at the end of the day, you know, you get as much of that as you need from Ghost being very stoic and from John Walker being an asshole. And like, I think it's a hat on a hat. That was the exact thing that they had labeled to. It's like, we already have this in the team. And it was a good cut. It was a really good cut because the crew we're left with, you can go person by person. And I really like every single person on the lineup. Every single one of them was fun to watch. I really want more Ghost. Ghost was kind of a breakout for me. Her powers, I didn't really give a shit about in Ant-Man and the Wasp. Here, seeing her use them as an assassin and like phase around and shoot people, it was so fucking cool. I was like, oh, this is amazing. I didn't care about this person 5 years ago.
It was very cool. It was like a new version of this character. She kicked ass. She seemed like a threat. She was maybe one of the only people on the team with powers in a lot of ways. Everyone else is just kind of like stronger than usual and, you know, whatever. Superhuman, varying degrees of superhuman. One guy is even so superhuman that if he bends over to cover a grow wall, like just scaffolding falls and crushes it. Not even scaffolding, just solid blocks of concrete and steel.
Oh yeah, reinforced.
Break over his back and he feels fine. That's like what the power scaling in some of these guys is a little ridiculous, but it's a fun group. She had some diversity power wise, and I know she's you said she's a standout. I don't know if she stood out to me. I feel like we didn't get any of her, and I don't know how much more I needed, but she was a good background character for me. It was good to have her there, but definitely the least flushed out of any of our Thunderbolt characters for sure.
No question. And to clarify, I mean, she stood out as someone who Marvel has a history of doing this. You'll see a character once and it'll be like, okay. And then in the time between seeing that character the first time and whenever they bring them back, they lock them in and dial them in so much better that when they show up the second time, it's like, here we go. This person's amazing. And like Ghost, I feel like is a perfect example of that, where when she first appeared, I did not give a shit. I truly wished that part of the storyline of Ant-Man and the Wasp had been cut. And then seeing her here, it was like, oh, I want more of this person. I want to know more about what this person does. I wished that we'd seen more of her, but apparently the reason that wasn't in there is because all the stuff for her was directly tied to Taskmaster. So when they cut all that, they cut all of her scenes as well.
Again, I think a good cut. If we're making cuts, that's a good cut. Yeah. I don't know how much more Ghost I need, honestly.
We'll see. I mean, I feel better too about that thing where it's like, now this is what's been canonized. This is what we're left with. And then I feel like they will be able to play with her more in the future based on what we actually got out of her in this movie, what was established. It's interesting to me too, how this team kind of feels like they've been brought in. Obviously, spoiler for if you haven't seen the movie yet, we do spoilers on this, so buckle up. Obviously, they're introduced as the new Avengers at the end of the movie. Functionally, I think their actual purpose is they're a lot closer to a replacement for the Guardians of the Galaxy, where they're this found family that bickers and they feel like fuck ups and they feel like they're the discount Avengers that can't get anything right. Meanwhile, I'm sure like Sam Wilson's Avengers will be like the actual Avengers that are all polished and they're using Quinjets and all that good stuff.
I will say, leaping ahead to the post-credit scene where Sebastian Stan talks to Anthony Mackie about the Avengers name and making a team, and he's like, it did not go well. I'm like, what do you mean it didn't go well? You guys are bros. Like, everything we've seen so far is establishing that you guys have a great friendship, and now Anthony Mackie is the bad guy when it comes to picking teams. Like, he's upset with you that you want to do the Avengers as well. Anthony Mackie didn't want to make the new Avengers. He was very reluctant to do this. So if Bucky's like, hey, we want to do this thing, come get involved with it, why wouldn't he show up and be involved other than for the sake of a story, right?
Dude,
or just to keep them separate.
Exactly.
There shouldn't be beef there. I can understand them developing different teams, and I like the idea of them creating different like tiers of team. And this team is much more street level, powers wise, and honestly, if we want to see them fighting and stuff, it's much more impressive on a smaller scale, which I think is what made the Sentry being the villain in this so fascinating to me. When I found out it was the Sentry, I was kind of like, oh, is this going to be a Suicide Squad mistake where it's all these expendable mercenaries who are now fighting a magic witch? Like, that's a complete waste of their talents. They are completely outmatched here, right? But it makes sense then to take the Sentry in, I would argue, probably the only interesting angle you can take with the Sentry.
Yes, Tim.
That he is Superman, basically. And Superman, I think, is pretty boring. He's a pretty boring character. And people might argue with that, but it's not that interesting to me, someone who can just kind of do whatever they want, whenever they want. But the Sentry is that character, but to balance him out, he is equally as equally strong as he is as equally weak by this, antagonistic character, the Void. That is basically a sign, like a metaphor for depression and, I guess mostly depression and low self-worth and beating yourself up. And it's really like a mental condition, basically, that he is constantly in struggle with and kind of negates the power of the Sentry. So in the comics, it feels like he's just kind of Superman and just kind of there in the background, unless they want to make an interesting story with him, in which case they involve the Void and this clash of personas and kind of this cloud that he has to deal with that's constantly hanging over him. So they did that in this movie. I think it worked great. I think Yolanda is the perfect character to do this with. I think taking this group of misfits who are all dealing with their own baggage and putting them up against an incredibly impossibly strong foe with the most baggage and having them all work through it together is an interesting take on this, and maybe the only convincing way I've seen a ragtag group of street level guys take out a god level threat.
Yeah, it's so cool, dude. It's amazing. It makes so much sense. They balanced everything so well. We actually went back and saw this one again. I liked it even more the second time. We'd read some of the interviews and stuff and looked at some of the stuff that they were doing. And we'd gotten heads up about the fact that, like, Yelena at the beginning of the movie is shown in a lot of darkness. And then, as the movie goes on, like David Harbour mentions that the light is back in her, she starts to be depicted with more light behind her. And specifically in scenes with her and Bob, she tends to have light in the backdrop. He tends to have darkness in the backdrop. The scene where they're all falling down the elevator shaft in the vault, she is literally and metaphorically saving him from the darkness of the pit. Like, there's a lot of things like that are pulled off symbolically, but I didn't consciously catch them. It just plays subconsciously, that really make this movie work, really speak to the amount of detail that was put into this, thought and planning, which is the exact kind of thing that everybody, myself included, have been complaining about with Marvel movies, is that they feel too slapshod, too thrown together, too in service of this bigger plan to really pull off anything interesting in the movie itself. So I'm such a huge fan of what they did here. It's also incredible that they managed to end it, like you said, like the only way that they would be able to take on this super powerful force is inside of his mind. In doing that, though, and even though everybody came back after the Void like shadowed them, which is one of the coolest special effects I think I've ever seen.
It's awesome.
they still managed to make the Void and the Sentry feel like an unbelievable threat. Like if we see him show up again in Doomsday or something, the entire crowd is going to go, oh, fuck, immediately. But it's awesome that they were able to do that without something permanent like a Thanos snap or something more like violent or traumatic to see. They just were able to craft it really subtly in a way that I'm just really impressed by.
I think comparing that to Captain Marvel, who is a character that everyone kind of thinks is handled incorrectly a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And just kind of has all this unearned power, right? When she shows up in Endgame, it's a big deal. You're like, oh shit, she's going to kick some butt. But imagining that, but it's the Sentry is another level. Just because they've spent so much time. One, they've made it very clear that he is the strongest hero that we've encountered so far in Marvel, which I think is true. I think he is the very top, the tip top of the spectrum as far as Marvel characters are concerned on a power level. But his power comes at such a cost that if he's going all out, it means that they are desperate.
Yeah.
And that is an added level of drama and tension to this story that I can't wait to see. I can't wait to see it. Because if they really need to break the glass and bring in the Sentry, then this is a God level threat. This is like everything else has failed. We have no other options. We have to go with the Sentry.
Dude, it's so sick. You already know exactly how it's going to go, and I'm still excited for it. Where it's kind of like they have to make the choice of it's the devil we know how to take down Bob, but otherwise we're not going to be able to take down Doom or whoever it is. So it's like, all right, unleash the Sentry on Doom. All of us, we just got to prep for the Void now. Like the fact that,
or
like,
even can we aim the Void at him?
Oh, dude.
Can we lock Doom and Sentry in an enclosed space of some kind where it doesn't matter if he's Sentry or Void, he's going to try and destroy this person, right?
God damn.
Like there's a bunch of ways you could play it. Somebody who would have with that kind of power, with those kinds of restrictions, them taking the shackles off and unleashing is such a cool moment. I mean, that's like the anime moment that you want, where it's like next level stuff. That's Captain America picking up the hammer. That's like the next level thing. And they've set it up so perfectly. And this character is just kind of like Chekhov's gun. He's just going to sit around in the back. And whenever he gets shot, it's going to be mind blowing. I think it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, that's a cool thing too. Real quick, where like just before we wrap on the Sentry, I am very much on record saying that like the movies tend to do the characters better than the comics. I think that's a double function of trying to keep things relatively grounded, and also the fact that they have less burden of continuity and more ability to pick and choose what aspects of the character really universally work. I've been a fan of the Sentry since the beginning, literally the beginning, the first Paul Jenkins run of the Sentry. I've been reading it since then. Have always felt this affinity for the character, but have always been very aware of nobody's nailed it yet. There have been moments that are cool, but nobody has nailed it. And I really feel like they truly nailed him here. The changes they made to the story, the fact that it didn't start with like him being a person that everyone had forgotten because they've already done that in Spider-Man. I think it really works. All of the things that have always been a little bit shoddy about him being because of a marketing play really work. And then also the fact, I saw Lewis Pullman say this in an interview, the fact that the way he's playing it, it's not a double character of the Sentry and the Void. He's playing just three characters of Bob, the Sentry, and the Void, which is cool because it's, I mean, like we've talked about, it's kind of like a manic depressive situation. The Sentry, Bob is when he's level-headed. The Sentry is kind of when he's having a manic episode. He's got kind of like a messiah complex. He believes he can do anything, starts to really lose track of himself. And then the Void comes in with that depression. So it adds this extra wrinkle to it where the Sentry is kind of like a hint of the trouble to come in his own way, because it's not, I feel like the Sentry, when he's the Sentry, is pretty much under control in the comics. And the fact that his own grasp on his abilities starts to slip away more and more the longer he's the Sentry is really cool.
Yeah, the Sentry, it seems like, has to deal with the hubris and temptation of his godlike power.
Yeah.
Right. And if he succumbs to that, then we get the Void.
Mm-hmm.
But that is an interesting aspect of temptation that, I mean, I don't feel like I ever really see with Superman unless you're doing like a parody where he like lands in Russia or something like that and tries to take over the world.
Yeah.
Sentry, I think, is tempted by his power in a way, or at least in this version of him, is tempted by his power in a way that is very compelling and complicated and fun.
It's neat to see, man. Speaking of tempted by power, I wanted to know, what did you think of John Walker in this?
Oh, I liked John Walker a lot. I think it's a good character. I think it's interesting. I feel like part of me is kind of like another Captain America. Like, I don't need another version of this thing, right? So the more different they can make him from Captain America, I think keeping the bent shield, I think changing his look, because really he's supposed to be U.S. agent, I think, is the character, right? And he is definitely a lot, I think he usually wears black and it's just like a different vibe. And this guy's got the beret and all these things now. And I think as he comes into his own as his own person, I'm going to enjoy it more. I think he's fast. I think he's a really good character. I think there's so much going on there. And I think maybe the reasons I don't like him are because I'm not supposed to love him.
Yeah.
Because he is kind of like a trashy dude, and he's cocky and he's full of himself and he's done some awful stuff and he's conceited and can't really come to grips with the fact that he's, been a shitty guy to people. Like, in his mind, he's kind of done nothing wrong. But by the end of the movie, they've really given him an opportunity to overcome those fears and come out the other side. And you get him in the post-credit scene where he's still kind of like a cocky douche, but has faced a lot of that, understands what he has done, and takes more responsibility for it, I think, is the implication. So, yeah, I mean, I think I like him more during this than I did during Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I think. So what about you?
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. He does, obviously he's a little bit darker as a reflection on what happened in Falcon Winter Soldier here. The backstory is tough, but the backstory of his wife leaving him with their kid because he was being a dick and not being able to move forward, that's really real, man. That's really, really real. And I like that this didn't end with, them reuniting and now the family's back together and he's better. They really left room for this guy to grow. I saw somebody speculating that he's going to get a redemption arc on Reddit. I do think it would be cool to see something where he has to fight like a version of Steve Rogers in, Doomsday, Secret Wars, something like that. He is fun to watch, but it's interesting to see, this version in Falcon Winter Soldier. They talk about all the great stuff this guy's done. He's a 3-time Medal of Honor winner. He's fought in all these places. He's sacrificed so much. And then, the shit happens. He makes a call to kill somebody. He clearly in this chooses to still believe that was the right move. And it's fascinating to see him go from this heroic, upbeat guy in Falcon Winter Soldier to this really dour, bitter guy. And you got to wonder if that was there all along. Was he always an asshole? But it was just easier to play the hero because he had all the check boxes checked? Or did he become an asshole and become bitter after everything that happened to him?
Yeah, I think the Steve Rogers in the MCU is basically just physically does not have it. Has all the heart, has all the guts, has all the spirit. And so the serum gives him the body to match what is already there, which is noble. Whereas this guy grew up, he's an all-star athlete, he's doing all this stuff, he's like this decorated Marine, but he's always had power. And so now he has even more power, and he's always been cocky about his power, even before he got more power. So he just gets more of this thing that he's already had. And I think probably more of his trauma, as opposed to him realizing he's done something wrong, is finding out that he isn't good enough. And I think that's probably more of it than him regretting killing that guy. Is that he's the man. He was the man. Now he's even more powerful, and he's still not good enough to be Captain America. Like, he's done everything right in his mind, and he's still failed. And so I think that's the thing that's haunting him more than some of the decisions he's made.
That's fucking great. That's good insight. He seems like a guy that the internet has really taken to. I would say I've been shocked like pleasantly surprised for, how many like toxic dudes there are in Marvel fandom. I've been like pleasantly surprised at how much love, very deserved, Flo Pugh is getting. She's phenomenal. She was no question the right choice to carry this movie. She's the most fun one to watch. She's a star. I would say after her, I've probably seen the most love going to John Walker.
Yeah, I think so, because I think he's the most complicated and it feels like he's redeeming himself. And he's getting some kind of an arc and he's coming to grips with what's happened to him and he's kind of accepting where he is now. And he's done bad things. And I think with a lot of these characters, if you do a bad thing and you recognize you did a bad thing and then you learn from that bad thing and you change, it's kind of like all you can do as a human being in life anyway, right? Is you mess something up, you learn from it, you move on. It's that's kind of all you can do. You can keep moving forward. I think the exact wrong move, like to what you were saying before, would be to like reunite him with his family. I think he blew it. I think he effed up. I think he blew it and now he has to own it. And I think that should be part of his character. And I think if, a director tries to put him back reunite him with his kid in any way that isn't kind of awkward and uncomfortable and is unearned, I think.
Yeah.
But he's great. I think this Black Widow, I do want to talk to you about the Black Widow of it all.
Yeah, I noticed you kind of shake your head, not shake your head, but kind of like weigh it side to side when I said that Yelena was the right call to lead this movie. Do you agree?
No, I think Yelena 100% is. I think she's a star. I think she's fantastic. I was kind of wiggle waggling about whether or not John Walker is like the number 2 in this movie. I think
interesting. Okay.
I really like Red Guardian. I think he's awesome. I think that actor is kicking butt and he's so fun. And I really, really enjoy the time with Red Guardian on screen. I really, really enjoy the time with Bucky on screen. And
yeah, man.
But I think both of those guys don't get to grow in the way that US Soldier does, or what's his face does, or that Yelena does. I think they both get to grow a little bit because they're facing their fears, they're battling the Sentry, but they're kind of there to fill it out, as opposed to Yelena kind of throwing this movie on her back and kicking butt. Yeah. So I guess my question is kind of, I don't think Scarlett Johansson could have done this. And I don't think her version of Black Widow could have done this at all. And I'm curious kind of if it is because Florence Pugh is just this incredible actress I think she's just way more fun and exciting and engaging than Scarlett Johansson is. I don't necessarily find Scarlett Johansson to be a fun actor, but I also think that her character, Natasha, was kind of used in whatever way, whatever director wanted to use her. She was kind of a flimsy honeypot. And then she was a love interest for like 5 different people in these movies. And she never really had her own agency. And then when she finally gets her own movie, it's really just to set up Florence Pugh as this entertaining character going forward. And even the Red Russian is more compelling than she is in that movie. I don't find her character super interesting. And I guess I was curious what your thoughts were on that. Like what are they doing right with this character that they did not do right with Scarlett Johansson's character, with Natasha?
Interesting.
Because they've given Florence Pugh, I think, more opportunities to kick ass and to have a personality. Whereas we get Natasha for the first time in Iron Man 2, right? And she shows up and she's seductive and she's flirty. But she's not funny. She's not fun. She's not a character that I'm like, oh, I can't wait to spend more time with this person. She's kind of intriguing. But Florence Pugh shows up in Black Widow's movie and she's allowed to goof off. She's slinging jokes. She's having fun. And she's sad and going through emotional trauma and probably going through the most trauma there because she's the youngest when this family breaks up and she's trying to find her family and she feels completely neglected and abandoned because she went through this at such a young age that it was all real to her. So she has real trauma in that she has to overcome and is funny and entertaining and charismatic. And then she shows up in Hawkeye and just has incredible chemistry with Kate Bishop, and that's another Kickstarter. But Black Widow never got a chance. I don't know what we can point to as like Black Widow's, Natasha Romanoff's like kick-ass moments in the Avengers that made you really want to stick around and root for this character.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I don't know that she gets them in the same way. The best one is probably her sacrificing herself in Vormir. Like I'm thinking about it. You're super right. Her character was on the lighter side. I think that is mostly a function of the MCU not really being dialed in yet. I've been listening to the MCU book that you told me about. It's on that Joanna Robinson from The Ringer wrote. It's on Spotify Unlimited. So I started like listening through to that. I just got to the part about Scarlett Johansson earlier today. And it seems like she's just really game and like a really fun person to have on set. And she's there to be really super committed to the role. They were talking about like how into all the stunt work and stuff she was and how she's just like a fun person to have around on set. So I think that amenability made her a big asset in the early days. But I think it was before they were necessarily able to lock in a specific character unless that character had their own standalone movie. Like unless the actual work was done to make one specific character be the protagonist for a movie or a trilogy like Iron Man, Thor, and Captain America all got. I just don't think it's there to the same degree.
Yeah.
You can kind of make the same argument for Banner. You can make the same argument for Ruffalo, where they ended up going in some kind of weird directions with him in Endgame because there wasn't as tight of a framework worked out for where this guy's going to go. We just don't know enough about him because of the rights preventing him from having his own solo movie after the Ed Norton one. So she really benefits from being given a lot more. You know what else? This might be it. She didn't have to be the protagonist of Black Widow. She was a protagonist of Black Widow, but she wasn't the main character. She kind of got to be the Kramer in that. And then like, or at the very least, the Elaine in that. And then I would say Red Guardian was probably the Kramer in that movie. So like by virtue of that, she got to be a little funnier. The audience is endeared to her in that way. And so she
got to be the Kramer in Hawkeye too.
Yeah, she was for sure the fucking Kramer in Hawkeye.
Whereas Black Widow's opportunities to be Kramer weren't fun.
No,
he was a side character, but she had to be serious. She was a super spy. She was taking her job more seriously. And then, oh my God, I'm a monster because I can't have kids, which is its own weird, problematic thing. And yeah, she never developed those relationships that you get in a solo movie, right? Yeah. Captain America has these other relationships with, you see with Haley Atwell, her character, where he's always trying to get back to her, and that impacts the loss. Like Thor's Natalie Portman and his crew and his guys and whatever, Valkyrie, they all have these own relationships that they interact with on their own in their own movies and their own team. But Scarlett Johansson doesn't really have that, or Natasha Romanoff doesn't have that at all. Even Hawkeye, the Avengers go to his family's house and you meet his family and you get to see him interact there and you flesh his character out that way. And Natasha also knows them. That's what she gets.
Well, so, I mean, it's sad, but they lay it out as that the Avengers are her family. Like that's the in-game thing where like they're talking around, and I know they add people in Black Widow, but at that point she was excommunicated from them. I do think this too, though, man. Her backstory and stuff, obviously extremely tragic, like the child soldier stuff and everything they went through in the Red Room. But the work that they do in this movie with Yelena, making her darkness center on loss of a loved one, loss of hope, aimlessness, and depression, like really, no pun intended, battling the void. That is so much more relatable to the average viewer. There's a line in this that gutted me and everybody else in the theater when she says like, all I do is sit at home and look on my phone and do all this stuff. And as soon as she said like play on my phone or like waste time on my phone, it made it so personal for everybody there. Just an incredibly well-written exchange between her and Red Guardian. And I mean, it really endears her to the whole crowd because as soon as she says that, you're like, that's me up there.
Yeah, she is kind of just like a millennial hero. She's got all the same, or she's in a different story, but she's got all the same kind of, what are we doing? What's the point of this? Where are we going? That all of us have, I think, or that a lot of people have and find very relatable. So I think, and then each other character has a different version of that, right? Mm-hmm. And it ultimately made this movie awesome. I mean, I love this movie. Some of the fight scenes were super cool too. Watching them try to take down the Sentry, super cool. Bucky showing up to kick ass, awesome.
Elena gets Bucky's all these Terminator
fights.
Moment.
His Terminator 2 moment is so cool. The
God
fight
damn.
in the vault between all of them was very fun. There were just a lot of cool moments for them to kick butt. And even in the dream sequence, when they're in the void, like she gets to fight, they kick ass. For a movie that wasn't built around action, it seems like we still got a lot of action. And I don't know, I left very satisfied with this movie and very happy. I think this is, gosh, I don't know. My reckless statement right now is that this is a top half. This breaks the meridian for Marvel for sure.
For Marvel, no question. Yeah, this one's awesome. I like it. The more I think about it, I liked it more on the second watch than the first. I think this one's gonna have great returns as time goes on too. And we also learned the most valuable lesson of all, which is if you want to get past your past trauma, you need to hire a U.S. war veteran to fight your dad. Not you, Dad. Love you, Dad. Listener, what do you think? Let us know. Send us an email, nerdy430@gmail.com. We will discuss it on the show. We'll be back here again next week with some scruples. You demanded it. It's back. So we'll see you then. Till then, stay nerdy, everybody.
Stay nerdy. Bye.